Hi, it's Stephen Gandolfi coming to you once again from the tasting room at Westport Whiskey and Wine. This week's flight we'll be talking about is all 10-year-old bourbons, but before we get to that, I want to tell you about this week's events. On Tuesday night, Chris will be hosting a Sazerac Bargin Bourbon blind tasting. I think it's $10 a seat. We still have some openings for that. That should be a lot of fun. The following night, we have a wine portfolio here, Aquitaine wines. I think that's $15 a seat, but go ahead and check online. We still have some seats available for that. Thursday night, we'll have Jimmy Rutledge here, and we'll be pouring Cream of Kentucky. He'll be signing bottles. It should be cool to come and hang out with former Four Roses head distiller and see what he's up to these days. But anyway, on to this week's flight. First off, Basil Hayden 10-year. Now, Basil Hayden 10-year kind of caught some flack when it hit the market. People were saying it was too light. I disagree. I think this has a lot of big, woody, char notes. I think the high rye mash bill that Jim Beam uses for Basil Hayden is really evident here. You get some really nice rustic, grassy notes underneath everything. And people kind of complain that it's only 80 proof. Well, I'd say that proof actually really lets you sit down and work on this whiskey. If it were a little bit higher, I think it might be overwhelming between the wood tannin and some of the rye. I think at 80, you can really sit down, kind of like, get the old Kentucky chew going and get to know this whiskey a little bit better. So that's our first one. Second off, one of my favorites. I know I shouldn't really pay favorites, but I like Wild Turkey. Russell's Reserve 10-year. I mean, this is just a whiskey that should be, I think, on everybody's shelf at home. Big, rich, cherry, chocolate kind of notes, earthy characteristics, a little bit of rye present as well, and just, I mean, a beautiful whiskey at a $35.99 price point. There's not much more you can say about that. Moving on next, we've got Bulleit 10-year. Now, historically, Bulleit 10-year, which they started releasing, I believe, in 2013, was sourced from Four Roses exclusively. They're saying now that they won't release where it's sourced from. We know it's not theirs because, well, they've only been distilling since 2016. But it's probably still Four Roses at this time. It's got big wood spice, a little bit of a kind of fruit note, a creamy mouthfeel. It's actually quite pleasant. At the price point, $45.99 or so, I think it's a pretty good price, a little bit high for an everyday drinker, but really good quality nonetheless. Lastly, what can be said about the mouthful name that is Henry McKenna Single Barrel 10-year Bottled and Bond? Well, lots can be said. It's on everybody's blog. It's all over the internet. It's a good whiskey. It really is. I wish it was more readily available. If you haven't had it, come in and try it in this flight. It makes a good kind of clean, slightly sweet finish to this, fairly robust and woody lineup. And that being said, typically this flight would be $22, $26. We'll say this is gonna be $15 this week. So yeah, we've got a flight of Decade Old Bourbons. Come on down and give them a try this week.